Welcome to F1 on the Rocks. Sit back and pour up your favorite drink. Hey, we're not the ones behind the wheel.
Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome back. F1 on the Rocks. We're cooking after Japan. Absence of cooking, sushi. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Get your cold one ready for today's episode. Today, we're going to review the controversial Japanese Grand Prix, where Max wrapped up the 2022 World Drivers' Championship in the rain and thunder at Suzuka. We're also going to discuss some updates on budget cap drama, some driver signings that have happened, and announce our newest contest, which is quite exciting. But before we get into the action, Mr. Brian Dower, how you been? How you doing?
Will, it's good to see you, man. After that GP, the World Drivers' Championship is wrapped up, and here we are. But I've been good, man. All is good here with me and the fam. Same old stuff going on, playing soccer, riding bikes, having a good time. So yeah, I don't have anything new and exciting to share, unfortunately. But what I do want to hear about is your Japanese GP get together, man. How was it?
Oh man, it was awesome. Really cool. I went out and spent an ungodly amount of money on sushi and filled up our entire dining room table with sushi. I went to the 99 Ranch Market, which is our multicultural grocery store, and bought a whole bunch of Japanese snacks and just laid them out everywhere. Look, I've got some matcha Kit Kats and some mint flavored Kit Kats. Yeah.
Wow.
So we had a little bit of a rager, man. We made some lychee martinis, and we watched on Friday night we watched practice 1, 2, 3, and then led right into qualifying and watched qualifying. And then on Saturday we started around 8, and then obviously sat and watched a rain delay, which was really exciting for people that traveled all the way here to hang out and party. But yeah, we had a good time. It was good.
Awesome.
I can't complain. It was a good time. But yeah, it's been good. I got this awesome hat. Do you recognize this hat?
Yeah. Where do I know that logo from? Did Michael Schumacher used to wear that logo?
Dude, I found a vintage Michael Schumacher championship hat on this website, and I was like buying it. Yeah. So pretty pumped to pick up some swag. I don't normally
That's awesome.
I guess I shouldn't say I don't normally, because I guess technically I've bought 2 Formula One related hats in the last few weeks, but yeah. But good. Yeah. So how did you end up watching Suzuka? What were you guys doing for the race? Did you?
Yeah, so practices were nice because of how early, FP1 and FP3 were on. So I caught those the night before,
Okay.
for me. And then Sunday morning, I think my time, the race started at 1. My kids got me up at 6-ish, and we watched it right off the bat. I got to breeze through the 2 hours of delay that unfortunately you didn't get to breeze through because you were watching it live.
Yeah, more cocktails.
Yeah, exactly. But so it was nice. It was a coffee and a Suzuka for me, and it kicked my Sunday off right. It was nice, man.
Nice. I'm glad you didn't have to suffer through the evening. Yeah, we waited through the rain delay, had some cigars on the back patio, and then we came back inside as the race was starting up again. And I looked at Bailey, and she got into our super comfy beanbag chair. And I was like, "Aren't you so excited? Like, the race is finally starting." And then I looked away, and the race started, and I looked back, and she was asleep. And I was like, "Right, she definitely wasn't going to make it. She did her best, though." Well, talk to me. What's your imbibement for today's episode of F1 on the Rocks? What are you sipping on today?
I am sipping on Tito's on the rocks in my Jerry Hailing glass. So I'm back on the Tito's.
You keep me on my toes. You get a couple weeks string together where you're not drinking Tito's, and I'm like, he's going for it again. But nope, here's the Tito's.
I came back to Old Faithful, man. I took a Pepsid right before we went live because the Tito's gives me a little heartburn. So a little preemptive Pepsid. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
What do you have over there?
Our lychee martinis for the race in Japan were Tito's vodka. You actually pour some of the syrup out of the can for lychees, and then you add a little bit of vermouth, dry vermouth.
Oh, nice.
And it gives it's a very nice light vodka cocktail. It's not super sweet. It was good because we could have multiple of them, and we weren't feeling really nasty. Oh, for today's episode, I had a colleague of mine and close friend deliver me a bottle of Whistle Pig small batch rye. So I'm gonna crack this bad boy open, give it a little pour over the keyboard. Hopefully I don't spill.
Whistle Pig. I've never heard of it.
Really? You never heard of Whistle Pig?
Yeah.
It's they're doing like small batch, like distillery small batch stuff. It's yeah, their vision is to respect tradition and embrace progress, from
Well,
the discovery of rare stocks to exquisitely aged rye whiskey. Yeah,
how about that?
it's good stuff.
Right.
Has
on.
nothing to do with Formula One. What does have to do with Formula One, however, is Brian is in charge of today's One Breath Race Review.
I've been training my lungs here for this over the last 2 weeks.
So the time to beat is yours, and I don't know what it exactly is in this moment, but
I think it's 22-3.
22-3 sounds right, and I think based on what I'm seeing here, you're going to have a challenge to get this knocked out. But I do have my timer ready for you, and on the count of 3 seconds, let it rip. On your mark,
Alrighty.
get set, and go.
It's pissing down rain for what seems like the 5th race in a row. Leclerc gets a great jump off the start, but is outbraked by Verstappen into turn 1. Sainz bins it on the first lap, causing a full safety car and eventually a red flag, but not before Gasly replaces his front wing with a Rolex billboard. After some Uno in the McLaren garage, we go motor racing Toto, but for how many points, nobody knows. Brilliant driving from Verstappen as he pulls out a full pit stop gap in a 30-minute race. Leclerc's tires fall apart, just like his season, and he's eventually forced into a mistake by Perez in the final chicane, handing Max the world championship.
Close.
25-95.
It was close. Here's the
I'll
thing.
take it.
That was exceptional because I think that you're able to take bigger breaths than I am. And I was the one that was saying before about how I had this long-winded ability to handle this. That was incredible. That was awesome. Also, too, shout out for the after some Uno in the McLaren garage, we go motor racing Toto. That was fantastic. Love that. I hope you caught that. Yeah. So podcast listeners, if you haven't attended the presence of an F1 on the Rocks podcast before, we do a one breath race review. It is a 15-second or less, in this case 25-second or less breakdown of the entire race, so that way you can get your fix and move on, unless you like to listen to some of the other fun things that we do and participate and engage with us, which we always appreciate and enjoy. Brian, nice work on that one today.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy with that performance.
Well, we are and have been talking about, but have not yet made the official announcement for the contest, which we're going to be running from now all the way through COTA, and we will announce the winner after the winner of COTA has been announced and crowned. But this is going to be our Caption This contest. And so what we're going to do is Brian's going to put out some social media, and that image is going to be something that is highly captionable. And the best caption, along with a couple of other steps, will impart a winner to that prize, those 3 prizes. And so sharing screen for our actual video viewers, we are going to be doing a few different things here. The first one is we've got F1 track neons. So Camel Neon is a company that's been doing some really cool stuff. They've been popping up on Reddit, and also he's like really involved in the community so much so that he's doing some giveaways like all the time. And so I really like just that business model of like taking care of people in the community. And so we're going to take care of him and his community. If you win this contest, you get to pick the track that you want, and he's going to make a neon and send it to you with your preferred track style.
Yeah,
that's part one.
Sweet. By
I
the
know.
way.
Like, I need one in my office.
Yeah.
I'm getting one independent of the contest. I'm getting one for the office in here. So
Hell yeah.
it's coming my way. Number 2, we're also going to be doing a Formula One beer mats. And I mentioned these last week to Brian. He's like, what? They're coasters in the style of different beer type coaster and also beer type labels and branding. But they just did a really good job making them look so natural that you can't even tell. So you've got like a Verstappen kind of looks like a Heineken label, and Fernando Alonso looks like I don't even know what beer that is. I can't remember the name of it. Anyways,
I can't tell either.
Very cool part number 2 to the gift. And then part number 3, I don't have a picture of, but it's going to be a Grid Names t-shirt. So if you're ever looking at the scoreboard and you see the first 3 initials of the driver's name with a color bar next to it, it's going to be a black t-shirt with white lettering and the color of that team's. And that would also be winner selection. So you would be picking a driver and you would be picking a track to get some swag. And I'll send you all of those things probably in one at a time pieces, depending depending on how they arrive and how we can get them to you. But we want to take care of our listeners. You guys have supported us and gotten us to this far. And so that's what this contest is. Don't hold back. There's no like R-rated things. You can say whatever you want to say. And if it's the funniest shit, it's the funniest shit. And we're going to call you out and get you some, some promo here on the podcast and also select you to win this stuff.
Love it. I absolutely love it. And the Grid Names shirt I bought for Christmas, Penelope and Quinn, I got them each one of Verstappen and one Lewis. It's
Nice.
fucking great. Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd never wear them at the same time, and nobody like in public has any idea what they are. They're like, why is that kid wearing a Ver shirt? Like, what the fuck is this?
No, but they put it on and they feel
it.
good about life. Yeah, exactly.
Yep,
It's
they
like,
know Daddy loves
They
that
know,
shirt,
they know who
so.
it is. Yeah, that's all that matters.
Yep.
Well, Brian, break us into a little bit of a race review here. I mean, obviously there was a lot going on. From the very get-go, we knew with weather that we were in for a treat. But talk me through how that weather kind of ran through the whole weekend, even including practice,
Yeah, absolutely. So the weather, and anybody who listened to last week's podcast, you and I both sat here and were like, don't rain. We want a dry race. Like, we want to see Suzuka at its best. And
really
of course, we got freaking rain and rain and rain. And it's like, for years, I've been watching F1, like, maybe it'll rain. And now I'm like, please don't rain. Please don't rain. It's just brutal, but such is life. But we had a couple silly things in practice that are worth mentioning. So after FP1 is over, they do their practice starts on the grid, and then they do their in lap and come into the pits, and Mick Schumacher bins it big time coming into the pits after FP1. Like, I know. The camera cuts to him like out of his car and the thing's mangled, and it's like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, I saw it live. So here's actually what was going on is they were trying to wrap up FP1. Like, the broadcast was wrapping up FP1 because they're like, everybody's headed back into the pits. But he came flying around that corner, and it didn't look like he did anything wrong other than I think it was 130R. Other than he was moving faster than he really needed to be at that point because he was coming in on a lap from his test start on the grid. He was doing a grid start, and then just threw it into the wall. The funny second part to that is in FP2, the broadcast is interviewing Gunther, and he's just kind of like, yeah, I have no idea why that happened. That was really stupid. Now my guys have to spend all night fixing it. And they're like, will you be back out? He's like, we'll be out for FP3, but yeah,
right.
I'm annoyed. Basically was the overall vibe.
Not the move you want to make when you're trying to get a seat in F1 next year.
No, definitely not.
Ouch. So hopefully that doesn't bite him in the ass, but we'll see. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Our boy Latifi, who we'll mention when we get into the race review, because he really had a great weekend for him, and I'm happy for him. But I think it was FP2 on Friday afternoon, he's coming up to the chicane at the end of the lap and makes a right 100 meters early, and then realizes he's on a dead end and no longer on the racetrack. And the most ridiculous part of it was he comes on the radio. He's like, that was weird what the car did there. It's like, the fuck you talking about, dude? You made a right like before you were supposed to make a right. Like, there's nothing weird about it besides you making a right off the track.
It's always funny to me when the broadcasters try to make light of whatever error was made and try to make it like, it's okay, this happens all the time. But like, there was a moment of recognition when they were like, oh no, yeah, no, he just made a wrong turn, and like it got really awkward, and then they had to like shift the attention to something else. But yeah, it's good.
I was very weird. So that was practice, and we won't spend obviously much time on that. But quali was dry, right? Am I remembering this correctly? All my days are blurring together, but quali was dry, so we were happy to see that, and it was close. I mean, Max was on pole as expected, but he didn't improve on his his second lap in Q3, so he had to stick with the first one, and he only eked it out by, I think, 1/100th of a second.
Yeah, so this was the closest margin between pole and second place this season.
Wow.
It was 0.01 seconds time gap. And we've talked about this before, how I always wish that I had more data. That's 3/4 of a meter in distance. Also, approximately 0.47 Yuki Tsunodas separated our top two qualifying. So there's your that was actually a tweet from F1. I thought that was clever of their account to release that to us. But
That's awesome.
basically half of a Yuki Tsunoda separated Max from Leclerc in that first and second qualifying position. But yeah, it was interesting. Like not only that, Max was warming tires on one of those qualifying laps, and like the car like snapped, and it snapped almost right in front of Lando as he was coming around one of the last corners to head in the chicane. And he was kind of like, Lando was like, what the hell? And Max after apologized because he realized like the car like moved on me when I was trying to warm up the tires, and it just happened to be right when you were passing me. So I feel like it was like the exact opposite of what happened at the last race when Lando did the same thing to Max. So
right. And I thought that that whole thing was weird. Like, why was Lando ripping it so fast through 130R on an out lap when he knows he's got Verstappen in front of him? Because like, even if Verstappen didn't kind of lose the back end there for a moment while he was warming the tires, it still would have been like super fucking weird and
really
like,
close. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I didn't get that. And obviously, Max, apologized in the whole thing, but like, I thought it was equally odd that what Lando was doing as well.
Yep. No doubt.
So,
but that got us through qualies, put Max in first, Leclerc in second, and Perez was in third, was he not?
Carlos
was in third. My apologies. Yeah. But then we get to race day, and a lot of rain, and a lot of rain, and a lot of rain, and some more rain. And then it was like, cool, let's start this bad boy, which was atypical. I'm wondering if people were holding over some resentment to Singapore and how long they had to wait for the race to start. And so in this case, they were like, saddle up, boys. We're cranking this in, we're doing this. And on wet tires, right? There were a few people on wets, or was everybody on an intermediate?
I think everybody was on the inter for the original start, for the actual start of the race. Yeah. Which is interesting because that inter is just so much better than the wet. Like, obviously the wet moves more water, but it's so hard and it's such a miserable race tire, which, we came to find out even more so during the race. But so that start was crazy. I mean, the visibility was basically zero. There was so much spray. And like some of those onboards, and I'm sure the guys can see a little bit better than the onboard camera shows, right? I'm sure they've got a little more understanding of where they're going, but some of those onboards were like, can't see anything. Like maybe some flashing lights, maybe.
Yeah.
But like, that's pretty fucking scary.
Yeah. And the thing I noticed actually yesterday when I was driving home is like, the flashing lights help you ascertain distance, but not like a physical solid object does. So like when all of that rain is in your face and your job is to start braking as soon as you see a vehicle in front of you braking, if you don't see that vehicle braking until it's literally right in front of you, it's too late. So it's one of those things where like that rain, that zero visibility really does inhibit their reaction times, which is the one thing that they're so great at, is having that fast reaction time to whatever's in front of them. So,
right. Yeah, so Leclerc got a great start, a better start off the line than Verstappen, and he was actually leading by half a car length, almost a full car length, and they're headed into turn one, and Max just does the Max thing where he just brakes later than anybody else, and by the time they got mid-corner, even just through corner entry, he's now a half car length ahead, and he's got some good grip kind of on the high ground there and just held it all the way around that turn. And you know what? It kind of reminded me of Mexico, 2021 Mexico. They have that super long start finish straight. So he comes to the end of it and it's like, oh no. And he just outbreaks everybody every time. I mean, the confidence this guy has in the car is just astounding.
It was crazy too, because, obviously only something you can pull off when you're in that 1-2 grid position. If he tried to pull that off behind the mist that was behind them, it would have been problematic. But the natural desire to send it on that outside line and the control that he had coming through it. Like, I remember watching it and being like, oh, this is going to slip out. This is going to slip out. This is going to slip out. And he did it. And I was just like, man, that's crazy. That was awesome. Yeah. So good stuff from him.
He's just on the limits so much faster seemingly than everybody else. But off of the start and on to the safety car. So lap one, after the hairpin, they're going down towards Spoon curve, and Sainz loses it. He just loses the back end. I'm sure he was just hydroplaning and lost the back end. Not a super nasty crash, but obviously full safety car, and then which turned into the red flag. And I mentioned the Rolex billboard. Did you catch that with the whole Gasly situation there?
Yeah, I did, and I'm curious about your take on this, right? So there's so many races where a car would hit a barrier of some sort, and the barrier gives way. It absorbs some of the shock of the vehicle, but doesn't really like leave any object behind. And so when that happened, and what I saw was two things. I saw Sainz's car hit the wall, and then I was like, oh damn, that sucks, because I really had money on Sainz to win this one. And then the second thing was I saw a second clip of Gasly's driver cam where you just saw this object fly in front of him, and everybody was like, what the hell just happened? I was like, Sainz hit the wall broke off, flew into the track, and Gasly picked it up. And I was like, damn, that's really scary, like a really scary thing for a moment. So yeah, we'll talk more about the Gasly sitch in a little bit, because that wasn't the only scary thing that happened to him in that moment. But what do you think about the way that track barrier is put together? I mean, does that not concern you that piece could come flying off like that? That could decapitate someone, could it not?
It doesn't concern me, because I think it's just plasticky cardboard
Foam core
type stuff. Number one. Number two, it's insane that somebody crashed there, essentially. And I mean, granted, he crashed there, so it's going to happen, but it's not like it's a tire barrier on like through a corner or something in a braking zone or whatever. Like, it's a really odd place for someone to have binned it. But I mean, to your point, somebody binned it there, and that was the situation. So maybe we should make sure these things are attached a little bit better. But that was crazy. Like, the whole thing happened, and then like the camera cuts to Gasly, who has no wing, but he's got the Rolex board like jammed up on the front of his car. It's like,
yelling, I can't see. He's yelling, I can't see. I was like, dude, you couldn't see to begin with. Now you just really can't see. Exactly. Yeah.
It was crazy.
Man, it was nuts. And then after that, they switched to Hamilton's cam, and Hamilton, I'm telling you, man, when I saw him fly by Sainz, I was just like, oh, like butt clincher, like he was so close to just drilling Sainz's car that had, if anybody watched, bounced off the wall and kind of rolled slightly back further into the track. And I was like, please stop. No, please stop.
Yeah.
Because that could have been really bad. I'm sure Hamilton, when he watched that recap later, was like, whoo, got away on that one. Got away with murder on that one.
The onboard of Sainz during that crash, and then right after, when his car settles, and then it's like whoop, 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 18 cars go ripping past them. It was like, holy shit. That was nuts.
Yep.
So all this happens in the race. We won't recap it lap for lap, because we assume everybody's seen it, but we had a nice battle between Leclerc and Checo. So Leclerc's tires start to die, and they didn't have a huge amount of downforce on the front of the car, apparently. So this is why he was getting a lot of understeer and kind of wearing out his front tires. So his tires were starting to go, and Checo was catching them at like a ridiculous rate. He was catching them like at 2 seconds a lap or something. He gets up behind him with 3 or 4 laps left. They're having a good battle. Leclerc is defending hard. And then on the final lap in the chicane, which is, 2 turns from the finish, Leclerc makes a mistake, and obviously Perez forced him into it. Leclerc makes a mistake. He goes straight through the chicane, and then kind of blocks off Checo, so Checo couldn't get past. So the interesting thing for me, so he got a 5-second penalty, which afterwards Leclerc said, hand up, totally deserved it, not complaining at all. But it was interesting because the penalty was for leaving the track and gaining an advantage, when you could see it the other way, where it was like, maybe it was more of a penalty for blocking Perez. Like, I don't know. It was weird. Like, leaving the track and gaining an advantage is not what I would have classified that as, but maybe I don't know anything.
I think it was 2 things. One, I think it was a recognition of the fact that having an understanding that your front tires were already going into that chicane, and knowing that you couldn't send it the way that he sent it. So he then went through that corner, and then coming out of that corner tried to compensate for the mistake that he made, which to me, when I went back and watched it, he was kind of he was upshifting at a rate of speed, which was like, oh shit, I fucked up. I'm trying to catch myself and get back in front of this car that I know is right behind me. And when he did that, the car snapped and turned a little bit, and he corrected. And I think that's what put him in front of Perez.
Gotcha.
That's my analysis of what happened. But I think ultimately, like, it was a Leclerc mistake going into that chicane with worn down tires that late in the race, quote unquote. And I think ultimately, like, Perez kind of knew what was happening there and made the right decision, which was just to push. So that way, if something did happen, he was the one being blocked by Leclerc. So
yeah, that is me in iRacing to a T. Like, somebody's behind me, the race is about to end. Oh fuck! Straight through the chicane, slow down penalty. Fuck.
Yeah. The hardest lap of any sim is the last one, because you're like, I don't want to lose anything that I've earned this far, and there it goes. Goodbye, penalty. Yeah.
Yep. So the other crazy thing at the end, Seb and Alonso. Tell us about that.
Dude, so first of all, the way they started the race is the way they ended the race. So did you see them on lap 1 in the first straight, where Alonso bumps into Vettel and he just does a little spinneroosker? And I was like, no, which I'll tell you later why, because I had a nice bet on him. But, I think like that opportunities were missed with the broadcast, because they're always so focused on, like, we'll just call it top 4, top 5, that they didn't actually catch the photo finish between Alonso and Seb. And it was a good one, like a really, really good one. I went back and caught the driver cam for Alonso, and it was his helmet cam. It was the one in his visor. So he's up next to Seb, and you see his helmet snapping. So you see Seb's car, like, he's just doing this, looking, trying to get past him, and he just can't do it, man. He was trying so hard. And it was a good hard fought battle between two racing greats, and I loved it. Like, I wish I could get more of that up in the front of the pack at the end of a race, It was pretty neat.
That was awesome. They were like 11 thousandths different when they crossed the line. And like you said, they didn't have the world feed didn't have anything of it besides the onboard. So all we got to see were like people in the stands there in the grandstands. You got to see like their cell phone videos and everything. It was really cool. And one of the other things, shout out F1 Data Analysis, our guys on Twitter. He put out a cool post that was a screenshot of Alonso's onboard when he was, I think, coming out of 130R, and he was hammering the battery, and it said like battery denied or
overtake
denied. Yeah,
he was hitting the overtake button, and it said overtake denied. Yeah,
overtake denied, because he had already used up. You can only use like 4 kilojoules of battery or whatever per lap, and he had already used it. And he's just hammering it. It's overtake denied. Can't you just see him like, son of a bitch?
No, for sure. He kept pushing past the finish line, right? So checkered flag, Alonso's pushing at Vettel, keeps going. Vettel comes across the finish line, and I think like subconsciously knew that the race was over, but then gets on the radio and goes, he's still pushing. And they went, checkered flag, it's over, you got him. And he went, yeah, we got him, So like Seb was like, oh shit, do I need to keep like racing this lap, or like what's happening? And the confusion with the laps and the rain delays obviously make it more difficult for the drivers, because they're mentally used to having to like keep track and keep up with what's going on, not a reverse time of how many laps less are we doing, or how much time is left before we're done racing. So.
Which is crazy. I don't know if you I always like to listen to F1, or maybe it's just a YouTube account or whatever, puts out like every driver's radio as they cross the line. And it was like 18 of 20 drivers didn't know it was the last lap. It was nuts. It was absolutely crazy. And I guess Verstappen crossed with the checkered flag with 5 seconds left in the timer. So everybody assumed, okay, he's got this lap and then one more, which is, I guess, how basically all motor racing is done except for F1, because F1 is just built for TV. And F1 is like, no, whatever lap it runs out on is the final lap. So that was very interesting. And I don't know if that's an FIA thing or an F1 thing or whatever, but speaking of which, we have some interesting things to talk about, some controversial things to talk about. So we have the tractor on track, number one. We've got the half points, full points stuff. So we don't need to beat a dead horse with the tractor on track stuff, but as we all saw, obviously, Pierre Gasly more than anybody, because I think he was close with Jules Bianchi, as were a lot of the guys, the younger guys, obviously. But Jules Bianchi died at Suzuka 8 years ago, sliding off in similar conditions, hitting a tractor, and boom, done. And that was that. And since they've changed these rules, and this thing should have been red flagged the moment they knew they needed to get a tractor on. And Pierre Gasly passed that tractor going faster than he should have, because he was catching up to the safety car queue. Right. Yeah. So the safety car goes through, and you see some fan videos of it. Safety car goes through super slow. All the cars behind it, super slow. Okay, fair enough. This makes sense. But then here comes, the couple guys who pitted, and then Gasly trying to catch up to that safety car queue, and they're ripping through there. And Gasly was rip shit on the radio when he passed it. What's this thing doing out here? Yada, yada, yada. To be, play devil's advocate, Gasly also got a penalty for speeding under red flag conditions, I think it was. And he hand up admitted that, whatever. But the stuff with the heavy machinery on track is tough, because I get it, obviously, from the driver's perspective. Safety should be number one. It always should be. What I think is really difficult to manage for the FIA and the race director are the 400 marshals around a 6-mile track doing stuff on their own
independently.
Like fuck. So this marshal hopped in a tractor and brought it on track. Like, maybe they didn't even know, or maybe they did. Maybe they had total control of it. But I think that's a piece of this that fans need to keep in mind. Is like, hey, I don't know how many marshals there are 200 marshals, and they've got instructions or whatever, but they're humans. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to get anxious and jumpy, and they're going to might do something wrong or whatever it is. Like, they're all volunteers. Something important to remember. So I don't know. That's my take on it.
Everything that happens, right? Every problem that occurs on the track facilitates the discussion of, like, why did this happen? Can we prevent this from happening again? Do we need to prevent this happening again? And in Pierre's case, a lot of what he brought into this was the emotion of, like, what had happened with Jules. And a lot of what, like, because you saw him in the pit, he was yelling and screaming at, like, a lot of the people in his own pit, because he was so, I think, overwhelmed by the fact that, like, any of their other drivers on the grid, including himself, could have easily hit that tractor, right? That's, to me, is one thing. The other conversation that we should be having, though, is there a clearer set of boundaries in which machinery can be brought on the track, right? When we're dealing with a low visibility situation where it's like it's already hard enough to see as is, then perhaps in rain type scenarios where this can't happen that way, we go into a red flag and the vehicles are able to come out on the track, do what they need to do, and then racing can resume right away. I don't know, and it seems like crazy to be like, well, let's red flag it again, but at the same time, right. To me, the answer would be, is a red flag worth saving a driver's life because they couldn't see a tractor that was too close to the track? Yes, a red flag is worth it. And that's right. That's where they'd have to go back and look at this. I can't do that for FIA. They'll have to sort that out for themselves.
Yep. Agreed. So moving on, half points, full points, quarter points. What the hell happened here?
Well, everyone, like, literally everyone, including probably Max himself at that time, thought that the race was going to be half points. Broadcasters, teams, drivers. We kind of concluded the evening with everyone going home and being like, oh, well, I guess we'll see you guys in Austin kind of vibe, And then I woke up the next morning and on Reddit, I saw that Max was champion. And I was like, huh? Wait, what? And it turns out that the Article 6.5 has stipulations which award reduced points after a race in rain scenarios where a race hasn't been completed at 25, 50, and 75%. But the key phrase in that Article 6.5 is that the race is suspended and cannot be resumed. And so in this case, we've resumed the race, and Max can be awarded the full set of points for first place, which he was, and became our champion.
It's crazy. that's the case, because if they had started this race 40 minutes later and started it and ran for like 5 minutes, because they got the checkered flag and it's over because it was the last 5 minutes of the 3-hour timer. They did 2 laps, done, full points. Like, I don't know if you call it a loophole, if you call it an oversight, like, what, I don't know what you call it, but that can't be how the FIA intended it to be, right?
I don't think so, but I also think that we're operating under the core fundamental of Toto's least favorite words in the world, which is we went motor racing, right? So they were racing at the end, and they were getting the tires warm, and there was communication between teams and strategies about how to proceed and what to do and how to win. And so as a result of that, I think the rules at this point at least perceive that that's worth the full amount of points awarded to the winner of that race. That's where the kind of line has to be drawn, is like, does the end of the race being a race insinuate that that person deserves all those points, or does the percentage of the race completed dictate how many points that driver should be rewarded?
Right.
And while we did not complete the entirety of the race, we did complete racing while racing. And so I don't know, it's a really slippery slope. But I will say that I'm sad that this ended this way, because as I've said in previous podcasts, I'm proud of Max and how hard he's been busting his ass all season to try and win this championship. It just sucks that he won it in a way that like wasn't as hyped as it kind of should have been in light of how hard he's been busting his ass to try and win his second championship. So
Right, exactly. So Max did win it, World Drivers Championship. It was about as anticlimactic as it can get, for the reasons just discussed. And you know who's most pissed off is Christian Horner. He didn't get his iconic radio message that'll be replayed in Sky Sports B-roll for the rest of the time. Yeah. Max Verstappen, you're a world champion 2 times running. Didn't get to do it.
We need to get we'll see. We'll keep it on Netflix, because if they throw it in there, we'll know it's fake, because we know that he didn't actually get to say that.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the guy who does all of the like voiceover broadcasting for Drive to Survive. It's awesome. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's not Alex Jakes. I can't remember his name. I think he's a BBC guy, like a Channel 4 BBC guy. But he basically goes in and does all of these recordings for Drive to Survive, when it's like, why would the announcer be talking about like the battle in 15th and 16th right now? It's like, well, because it's all made for the show. That's why.
100%. Exactly. So I saw you had something about Checo's role in Max's success both last year and this year.
Checo, the best wingman money can buy. So last year he held up Hamilton, which allowed Max to pit. Well, I'm sorry, it didn't allow Max to pit. It made sure Hamilton couldn't pit when the safety car came out. So Perez held up Hamilton enough in Abu Dhabi that he didn't have a pit stop gap when Latifi binned it and the safety car came out to get new tires.
Right.
So that meant Max was right behind him on fresh rubber. Hamilton was not. This time, Checo forced Leclerc into the mistake, pushing hard, which dropped Leclerc to third, which means Max was the champion. And this is me pumping Checo's tires as much as I can, because I'm a sucker for the older guys in F1. But little levity, because obviously Max, is the best driver on the grid right now, but Checo's earning his keep, man.
You gotta love this, because I was gonna ask you earlier when we were talking about Checo and Leclerc. I was gonna say to you, who do you think has made more mistakes this season, Checo or Leclerc?
I think Leclerc has made more mistakes this season than Checo,
and I feel like Checo's car has made more mistakes this season than Leclerc's car. Right.
Yeah.
So you remove the faulty team and the faulty vehicle from the equation, and I think that Checo at this season was a better driver than Leclerc was, despite the points race. Right. But interesting to see how, you say Checo forced Leclerc into that corner, but it's like, no, Leclerc was pushing because he knew that he needed to finish second, and the mistakes were made. So good. Props for Checo and helping Max secure his second world championship. He couldn't have done it without him.
Amen.
That brings us to the end of All in a Day's race, and into some some crazy things with the budget cap news. We finally are getting details on what's happening with these budget cap conversations between FIA and some of the teams, specifically Aston Martin and Red Bull. What have you seen on this in the past few days?
We're finally getting some news. So Aston Martin had a procedural breach, which who knows what that really means, I guess. But Red Bull had a procedural breach and a minor overspend, and a minor overspend is classified as less than 5% of the budget cap, which I think comes out to be like 7.5 million, something like that. So Red Bull, I don't know if it was in an interview or an official statement or whatever it is, or it was just Horner in an interview, but basically said a lot of that spend was catering at the home office. I guess they give free lunches to the team, which is great, but needs budgeted for. And the other they said was sick pay was the other part of it. Paying employees while they can't work and while they're sick, which is also interesting because wouldn't that just come out of the payroll standard budget? Like, are they paying them more because they're sick? That didn't make a ton of sense to me.
This is where it gets dicey for me, right? Because if FIA included sick pay as something that should be part of the budget cap, then the first question is, well, why would you do that? No one can predict what sick pay would actually be required over the course of the season. So how could I possibly plan around that in my budget cap? What you're essentially saying to me is, hey, you only get 2 million for sick pay. Great. But what if I only use 1 million? Then I'm losing out on 1 million that I need for my team. So there's some things here that I don't like, that don't fully add up to me. And I feel like that might have been where Red Bull was approaching the whole, like, hey, we're looking over this with them, because if the regulation said these two items are part of your budget cap, you need to accommodate them for them, then Red Bull might have been like, right, but like, what if one Friday we don't meet and didn't buy a lunch? Like, there's ways for them to kind of argue this, and I'm sure their legal department is working their way through it very meticulously. But I'll be curious. I mean, obviously, I'm a firm proponent of, like, if you broke the rules, you should pay, and that's not what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that they should not pay for this, but if there were errors in the way that FIA has articulated, written, and communicated those rules, then I don't think that Red Bull should be held liable for misconstruing or misunderstanding or working through these through a way that they did. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. I mean, the accountants have a way of, putting things in other budgets and other accounts and making things look different. I mean, they're like statisticians, right? Like, you can make a number tell any story you want to.
Sure.
It's just how you frame it. So I'm sure a lot of the teams did a lot of creative accounting to get to where they need to be. So
yep.
But we'll see. Moving on from that, we've got some driver news. We finally had some signings. So not anything too shocking because we knew it was coming, but it's officially official. Pierre Gasly is going to race for Alpine. So they've got the all French lineup. Sounds like the beef from way back when with Pierre and Ocon was over a girl. Supposedly the rumor in the Twitter world is Gasly stole Ocon's girl years ago.
What?
Yeah.
No.
So I mean, they're fucking 24 now. It must have been when they were kids, like 16, 7 to 18 years old. But so who knows? It could be total bullshit.
Would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in the room when someone was like, all right, guys, look, like, here's the deal. We're signing Gasly. Let's have it out. What are we actually talking about here?
Right.
And Ocon's like, he took my blonde girlfriend and took her out for a hot date, and I don't know. It upset me. Yeah, that would have been a very interesting conversation to hear. But I have to say, I'm pumped about Gasly going to Alpine. I think he's going to do some remarkable things there. I just don't think people know what's coming yet, and it could just be like overhyping like his comeback from Red Bull back down to AlphaTauri, and he's trying to work his way. But I think Gasly's a very talented driver, and I want to see him in a car where he can not have to fight performance issues as he's testing whatever Red Bull wants to test. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited for Gasly as well. I think he's going to have higher highs and lower lows than Ocon would be my guess. Ocon is super steady. He's boring as all hell.
He's consistent.
I mean, I'm not a huge Ocon fan in general, but he's a good driver. You got to give it to him, and especially this week in Suzuka. I mean, he outqualified some Mercedes and finished fourth. Like solid. So that Alpine team, and they're a works team. Like fuck, who knows? They could maybe challenge for some podiums here coming up in the next couple of years. So I hope so.
Them and Aston Martin, whoever figures out the budget and how to manage their cars better will be the top third. I will say the top third or fourth team consistently for the next few years. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. The next one was Nick de Vries. So with Gasly out of AlphaTauri, Nick de Vries is in, and it sounded like Verstappen told de Vries after Monza to call Helmut Marko. He's like, wait a day and call Helmut. And so who knows how legitimate that is as well. But I did hear it from Max in an interview. Max was giving himself a little pat on the back for helping out his buddy.
There's a coffee place here that I like to frequent called Dutch Brothers, and I'll just leave it at Dutch Brothers.
Nice.
Yeah. Williams is looking like a Logan Sargent or Mick type scenario. The legacy of the Schumacher name just has this glow about it, and I can say confidently that I feel like Haas would be best off letting Mick go and finding another driver who can help at least stay at the same level as Magnussen. But in the case of Williams, I'd prefer to see Logan Sargent in the seat. I just don't know. I don't know what Williams is looking for at this stage. That's kind of the weird part about this. Like, how will they accommodate that seat and that need that they have? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Next to Albon. I mean, it's not like Albon is such a star and outperforming that it would be difficult to fill that seat, but Albon tends to contend a bit stronger as the driver one on the Williams team. Even if Latifi weren't there, I would say that anybody coming in would have to do an outshining job of what Albon's doing to try and get a seat somewhere else. So
yeah, I agree. I think if it's Logan or if it's Mick, they're both going to get overshadowed pretty significantly by Albon. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think Logan Sargent needs to finish top 5 in the F2 season to get enough points for his license. So, that could still be up in the air.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But Haas, I don't know. I haven't heard anything recently. They've thrown around Hulkenberg. Obviously, they're still thinking about Mick. It sounds like Giovinazzi's maybe out of the picture now, but it's been very quiet from them. So this could go, into November.
I see Haas making this. I see Haas making this announcement after the season ends. They have there's no crux for this for them to make that decision. It's like whoever they put in the seat, they need to be firmly confident that that was the right decision. So therefore, there is no rush. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. Mixed money is here. Let's just hang.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, I prepared a little segment for you, and I'll zip through it because I am cooking our listeners here quite a bit. But fun on the rocks. I put together a couple fun segments, knowing that we didn't have a preview this week because there is a 1-week break coming up, and so we did. I challenged you, Brian, to draw the Suzuka circuit after only looking at the track map for 30 seconds before the race. And by the look on your face, I'm guessing you didn't actually fucking do the challenge, which is cool. I'm good at reading people's faces, but we did. So you can just listen while I tell you what we did. So and my party of 6 folks that we had over at the house, we did a fun activity where everyone immediately felt like they had this in the bag. So I was like, everybody look at the track map, memorize the track map. You've got 30 seconds. Then you run in. Here's a permanent marker and a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper. You got to draw the circuit. And everybody was like, we got this. This is so easy, whatever. And they go flying into the rim. And then one by one, they came in like looking all deflated. Like, shit, this is way harder. So here's our 6th. I'm going to put these up in the blog post, but here's our 6th place map.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. And then here's our 1st place map.
That's impressive. Who
bad.
Did that?
Not bad. That was Josh. That's Josh Parcells. He's one of our avid listeners and our one and only Patreon. So if y'all ain't Patreon, suck it up and don't make Josh put the team on his back like a true goat that he is. Anyways.
Well done there, Josh.
we appreciate everybody participating in that fun event. I think that maybe this activity was so fun that we challenge our listeners via Twitter to post a 30-second video of themselves trying this on a future track, and we could get like a couple different videos of people like giving it a swing like live on camera where they can't cut away or something.
Yeah, I dig it.
But it's pretty fun. It was also very challenging. Like even for me, I was like, I got this, and then I went and did it. And when you get like halfway through the track, you're like, oh shit, I forget where it goes next.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Is this a left or a right? Damn it.
Yeah. I don't have a sound effect for this segment, but I'm gonna get a sound effect for this segment because I'm gonna make it a new recurring thing. And this is the first ever dope ass helmet and or posters of the week segment. That was a really long segment name, but it's what we're going with. So for Japan, especially, I think artistically and creatively, it becomes a little bit more of an outpouring of creativity in the F1 community. But the drivers, if you've noticed, will release pictures on their social media pages and also in other locations of their custom helmets, which typically have a trend of the culture or something related to an event that's going on in the world and or a social cause and or the culture of the race location. And so this week's dope ass helmet of the week went to Lewis Hamilton, and he had a collaboration between himself and Takashi Murakami. And if you don't know who he is, he's a famous Japanese contemporary artist who's famous for who is most known for his bright flowers with faces. I actually saw when I was in New York with John Rumo, one of our previous podcast guests, his installation in New York City, and it was so dope. But this is that I can't log in. This is that helmet that you can see there for Lewis, and search it up. It's pretty cool. Then you've got the dope ass poster of the week, which I'm single-handedly, because we didn't discuss about this, awarding to Alfa Romeo. And this poster is so legit. This shit slaps, dude. It is heavily inspired by the Japanese anime Akira, and the detail in it is unreal. Like, it's like whoever drew this poster knew Akira back to front, knows Formula One back to front, and knew how to perfectly combine the two so that you didn't know that this was a Formula One poster, that you just thought it was an anime poster. And that's at Jalcalara. But we'll link, I'm going to link both of these into the podcast description so you can get to their Twitter pages and their Instagram pages and follow them. It's definitely worth throwing them a follow because some of the art that they're putting out is really incredible.
Right on.
Honorable mention for the helmet was Albon. Albon had a really cool helmet. Honorable mention for the poster was Mercedes. They took a swing at the anime-esque poster and they did okay, but not like Alfa Romeo did it. It was definitely better.
Yeah, there were some sweet helmets. Singapore had some good helmets too. Everybody does the shiny helmet for Singapore because it's under the lights. But
get all those flashes in the pictures and stuff. Yeah,
right. My girls love the one-off helmets. Their favorite, I think, is Albon's dog, cat, animal family helmet that he rocks. So they're into it.
Well, I did place some bets this week. I had placed the bets this week with the consult of the folks who were at the party. So I had a little bit of guidance on some of these. The other ones I just placed because I was like, instinct tells me this is the right call. The first one was Yuki Tsunoda versus Pierre Gasly in qualies. I bet Yuki and I won $7.95. Hey, boom. There you go. I also bet Seb to finish in top 10. I won $4. Hey. And then obviously we went with the whole Max route because it's like Max has to seal the deal here. Let's take it home. So I bet Max to win the race and fastest qualifier, 308 plus $4.50 for a total of $7.58. Hey, I made like $20. Then I went to the casino with my friends who were in town for the race and lost $150. So like, it's a win-loss, call it what you want to call it. It just didn't turn out good for me.
It was great when you sent me that text about picking a race winner and pole or whatever, and it was just like the most depressing response. I'm like, probably fucking Max.
I was like, hey, at least he's holding true for the win, like because most people are like, let's take an underdog, maybe we'll win.
Right.
So in grid rivals, though, there's no money on the line currently. It's just a good old friends league. It was a rough week for most people. How did you end up doing, Brian?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't set my anything.
It looked like everybody except for you and maybe one other person had a downtick in salary cap level, which means that I think that you might have done better than a couple of other folks in there. But Drace is still leading in first place, 7,991 points on the season, with Michael K 981 trailing behind him with 7,557 points.
That's tight.
So we could see in the last few races of the season a lead change if someone doesn't make the right decisions, or technically speaking, because you lock your drivers in for a longer period of time. If they made the wrong decision a couple weeks ago, we'll find out for them. But yeah,
Good stuff.
Well, we appreciate you all participating in today's podcast and catching up with us at the end of this Japanese Grand Prix. We'll probably have a bit of a break next week as we lead and head into Austin, but we did want to remind you to get yourself in all of the social media places so you can participate in this contest. The gifts that we're giving away as a part of this contest are going to be super sick, and we want to get back to you, those folks that have been listening. We'll also have another blog post coming out in the next week or so. If you haven't been reading the blog post, I'd highly recommend you pop back into the website after the episodes have been posted to get some of the really awesome information that we're kind of releasing in between races, and all different ways and all different parts of Formula One. If you haven't shared anything, like the website or the podcast video or some of the Twitter posts that Brian's putting out, you should do that. It would be really cool if you just did that and shared it, because then other people would get to listen in and hear what kind of fun things that we've been up to each week and what we believe is the coolest parts about Formula One. Brian, do you have anything else for our listeners?
I don't. Follow our stuff. Share it with a friend. Talk to your buddies about it. Give us a like, give us a review. That's helpful as well with all the algorithm stuff. And follow us on Twitter. I'm working my balls off to get some more followers here, and it's not the easiest thing in the world. So throw me a bone. Follow me on Twitter.
Get the guy some followers, guys. Come on. That does it for us. We love you guys. Thanks for listening. Catch you next week.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to F1 on the Rocks. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe now and watch for updates at f1ontherocks.com and on social at F1 on the Rocks.